Hi, Matt Allington here. It's Wednesday, the 2nd of November. This is the second update on the River Murray floods in 2022, with a particular focus on Big Bend. If you missed my previous video, you might like to go back and have a look at that one. They're all in the playlist. Just a couple of things to point out. If you're looking for these videos or want to share the link for the videos with other people, that's the first link on the page. Secondly, if you'd like to have a look at the interactive report, it's available online. You can find the report at the second link. And thirdly, if you'd like to learn how to build these reports, you can take a look at my training offerings at the third link on the page. Okay, so let's go to the report and have a look at what's changed since the last update. So this is the main page here. This is the lock map showing you where the locks are. So lock 15 is here in Euston. Lock 10 is at Wentworth on the New South Wales border with Victoria, and here's all the other locks. This is the system map. If you'd like to have a look at this system map, this map is updated every day with the latest data. Now, one thing I've done to make it a little bit easier to follow is I've created this little thumbnail. I've put this thumbnail on most pages, and it's just a little visual reminder of where the water sources are. So the three main sources that we're tracking are Wakool, the Murrumbidgee River and the Darling River. And this is just a visual representation of where they flow in together, and that's available on every page. Okay, so let's jump over to the flow report. We'll take a look at the flows. Now, I've got a few bookmarks here. So if you click on the most recent data, so this is data basically for 2022, and you'll see that I've got the major locations here that we're tracking. So if we just go back and have a look here, so we're starting actually at Wakool Junction. That's a little bit upstream from Lock 15. So you can see that the water is pretty high there. Then that flows down and we pick up the Murrumbidgee River, and you'll see the Murrumbidgee is not flowing too strongly at this point in time. And then both of those water sources then flow into Lock 15. And you can see that Lock 15 hasn't actually received all of that water from Wakool just yet, which is why it's good to keep track of Wakool Junction, because that water obviously is going to come down to Lock 15 and then down to the other locks. Once it hits to Lock 10, we'll have a very good idea of how much water is going to come down. Let's go and have a look at Lock 10. You can see that it is going up, but part of the reason Lock 10 is going up is because of the Darling. So if you have a look at, there is some water coming in from the Darling. It's not anywhere near as much as some of the other locations. Okay, so if we move on and have a look at the flood years, so I've got the major flood years highlighted here on the page. So 56 was the big one where we hit 300 gigalitres a day. This is actually for Lock 15 at the moment. That's the main lock that I had data for back in 1956. Unfortunately, I don't have data for some of these other locks. If I come down here to say Lock 10, you'll see that I don't have the big floods, the 56 and the 74 floods. So, but the biggest one was 93, and you can see that if we went to the 93 flood coming through Lock 10, the one that is a pretty good indicator of what we're going to get, was about 140 gigalitres per day. So let's have a look at what's coming out of Wakool at the moment. So in 93 it was 141, and we're getting up there. We're getting up to 125, so very similar to what we had back in 93, remembering that that many of the shacks at Big Bend did not go under in 93. In fact, I've got a few photos, so thanks to Mike and Wendy for taking these and sharing this data with me. So there's a bit of extra data that I've got here. This is the shacks at Big Bend in 93. I'm not clear whether this is at the peak of the flood. I do remember it being somewhere about this level back in 93. It might have come up a little bit more than that, but you can see that that this shack here, this is our shack, it's high and dry, and we didn't go under definitely back then. Also, I think Wendy might have snipped these paper cuttings, so I am going to get this data added so that I can actually track various data points back in 93 where I don't have them, particularly these Swan Reach levels, which I currently don't have. So I'm going to get that data added for a future update. So let's come back to the flood years again. So Lock 10, an important lock. You can see that we're doing okay at the moment. 93, we didn't go under. So Lock 10, we're nowhere near that at this stage. So we've got another 20 or 30 gigalitres before that becomes a problem. If we have a look at the Darling, Darling comes in before Lock 10. And so in 56, there was a lot of water coming down in the Darling, but for 2022, it's not really a problem. And then this particular point here is the combination of Wakul, Murrumbidgee and the Darling. And so you can see that this year we have exceeded what happened in 93, but you have to keep in mind that the timing of these things is important. So Wakul is the furthest upstream, followed by the water coming in from the Murrumbidgee and then the water coming in from the Darling. So there is some more water upstream in the Darling, but it really has to do with the timing of when these three water sources come together. And then when they hit Lock 10, that's when we'll know that there's a problem. But you can see that there is a lot of water coming through here, but keep in mind that that's an artificial combination of those three water sources. There's nothing to say that they're going to be hitting Lock 10 at the same time. Okay, so now taking a look at some of the river levels at key points here. So Lock 15 through to Lock 1. You can see the peak flows coming through here and also the heights. Now these peak heights are the heights that are associated with the chart that we're looking at. So we're currently looking at the recent data, and you can see that Lock 10 peaked basically yesterday at 32.5. But if we go back, say, to 93, you'll see that Lock 10, 33.3, so pretty similar. If you go back to the 74 floods, you'll see that it was 51.7 at the peak. In this case, it was Lock 15. I don't have the Lock 10 data. So there's always a challenge with getting that historical data. Okay, so moving on to inflows into Lock 10. What I've done on this chart is I've put a table up here so that we can see what's coming out of the three key points, Wakul, Murrumbidgee and the Darling. This is what's coming out of those 3 points, and then what we're seeing in Lock 10. So still a fair way off this, but a lot of that water is a fair way upstream. And here's the breakdown of each of those data points. As I mentioned in the video the other day, there's a big gap here now, so it looks like there is a surge coming down. But keep in mind that it's the combination of those three water sources that may or may not hit us at the same time. And if you look at what happened back here when we had a big surge, it would appear that they didn't hit at the same time. So there's some reason for optimism there. I've also added a new page I'm calling Big Ben Notes. There's just a few data points here in discussion with Dave from Shack 12. Dave took a laser level out and took some measurements around the place, so I've recorded in here what I think is correct. There might be a couple of things I need to improve on this just to correct a couple of things, but this is the data that I've got at this point in time. So this is the flow in the last 100 days of the key points that we're tracking. So 15 through to 10, then down to Lock 1. And then this is also the levels over that same period of time for those three locks. So it's estimated that that the shacks will start to go under at about 4.35 metres. Now, I actually say this is the Big Ben height. I do need to get those Swan Reach numbers into here so that we can keep track of that. So I'm expecting that the height at Big Ben would be similar to what's happening at Swan Reach. And so we can keep track here. I've also created another tab which I'm calling the 2020 view, which has just got some of the key data on here that we need to keep track of. So here's those two important data points again. And if you want to take a look at the levels, you can come in here and click on one or more of these charts to see what's going on. So you can see Lock 10 taking off now. Just looking at the barrages, I did notice yesterday that they had closed all the barrages for one day, but they've got them back open again today. So I'm not sure why they did that, but this is still a good sign. I think that they've got the data ahead of the game. So there we have it. That's the update for today, and I'll come back in a couple of days and do another update.